Noah Bennett slammed his shoulder into the frosted glass door, ripped it open, and froze, because the most powerful woman in America was standing 3 feet in front of him, half out of her blouse, staring right into his eyes. He didn't run. He couldn't. His toolbox hit the floor with a crash that sounded like the end of his life. Victoria Ashford didn't scream. She didn't call security. She looked at this trembling janitor in a torn work shirt and said 7 words nobody in that building had ever heard her say. And what she said next didn't just save his job. It exposed a man inside her own company who wanted her dead. Stay with me to the end of this one, friends. And do me a favor, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story has traveled. If you like stories about ordinary men with extraordinary hearts, subscribe and stick around. This one's going to hurt before it heals. The alarm went off at 4:15 in the morning, and Noah Bennett was already awake. He'd been awake since 3:40, lying flat on his back on a couch that had been a bed for 2 years, doing math in his head. Not big math. Not the kind of math that men in suits do on the 40th floor. Small math. Cruel math. The kind that eats a man alive $1 at a time. Rent $1,100 due in 9 days. Electric $84 already late. Lily's inhaler $63 because the pharmacy said his coverage had lapsed on the 1st of the month, and nobody had bothered to call him. He had $412 in the bank. Noah lay there and moved the numbers around like a man moving furniture in a room too small for it. Take from here, push to there. Somebody still ends up standing in the hallway. Then he heard it. The cough. 3 short ones from the bedroom, then a long one dragging wet at the end. He was off the couch before the last one finished. Hey, hey, hey! He was on his knees beside her bed with his hand on her back. Sit up, baby. Sit up for me. Lily Bennett was 7 years old and weighed 41 pounds, and when she coughed, her whole body folded like a paper thing. She sat up. Her eyes were wet and confused the way kids' eyes get when their own body scares them. Daddy. I know. Slow. Breathe out first. Out, then in. Remember. It hurts. I know it does. He got the inhaler off the nightstand, the old one, the one with maybe 9 puffs left in it, if he was lucky, and 11 if God was in a good mood, and shook it and put it in her mouth. 1, big one, go. She pulled. Held it. Her small shoulders shook. Good. That's my girl. That's my tough girl. 10 seconds. 20. Her breathing loosened, whistled, then evened. She dropped her head against his chest, and he felt the wet cough finally die out somewhere in her ribs, and Noah Bennett closed his eyes and let himself have exactly 2 seconds of relief. That was all he ever allowed himself. Daddy. Yeah, Bug. Are you going to work? Yeah. It's dark. It's always dark when I go. Sun comes up while I'm driving. It's kind of nice, actually. I get to see it first before anybody. She thought about that. She was a kid who thought about things. Before the whole city. Before the whole city. That's not fair to the city. He laughed, a short one, a real one, the first of the day, and probably the last. Yeah, well, city's got enough. He tucked the blanket around her. He looked at that inhaler in his hand and shook it again, listening, doing the math again. 9 puffs. Maybe. Mrs. Kowalski's coming at 7 to take you to school. Okay. You be good. I'm always good. You're mostly good. That's the same thing. It really isn't, Noah said, and kissed the top of her head and stood up and went to work. The truck took 4 tries to start. It always did in the cold. Noah sat with his hands on the wheel while the engine coughed like his daughter, and he found that funny in a way that wasn't funny at all, and then it caught and he pulled out onto the road with the heater blowing air that never quite got warm. His phone buzzed at 4:52. Dispatch Ashford Tech. Priority. Exec floor. Get there. Noah stared at it at a red light. Ashford Technologies. 41 floors of glass downtown. He'd been working the building for 2 years and had never once been above the 12th. Executive floor was a different country, different air. Guys like Noah went up there the way plumbers go into cathedrals, quickly, quietly, and out before anybody important sees you. He typed back, "On my way." 25 minutes. Then a second message came in, and this one made his stomach drop. "Dispatch heads up, she's in the building." Noah didn't have to ask who she was. Nobody in that building ever had to ask who she was. Marcus Doyle was at the loading dock with a thermos and a face like a man who'd been awake so long he'd come out the other side of it. "You look like hell," Noah said. "I feel like hell, and I'm about to make you feel like hell too, so buckle up." Marcus was 59, a security supervisor, and the closest thing Noah had to a friend in that building. "Power's ghosting on 41. Whole East Wing. Lights on, lights off, lights on. Been doing it since 2. 41's her floor. 41 is her floor, and 41 is where you're going. And I'm going to say this once Bennett and I want you to hear me." Marcus put a hand on the truck door. "You go up there. You fix it. You don't talk. You don't look around. You don't touch anything with her name on it. And you get out." "Marcus, I'm not kidding." "I know you're not. 3 guys got walked out of this building last year for less than nothing. One of them took a phone call in the wrong hallway. A phone call Noah." Marcus took a pull off the thermos. "You've got the kid. I know about the kid. So I'm telling you like an uncle. Get in. Get out." Noah pulled his toolbox off the seat. "You ever met her?" he asked. "Twice." "What's she like?" Marcus was quiet a second, and when he answered, it wasn't the joke Noah expected. "Like somebody standing in a room where the roof already fell in," he said, "and she's the only one who knows it." Right. The executive elevator required a badge. Noah's badge didn't work. Of course it didn't. He stood there for 2 minutes, swiping it like a fool, before a woman with a headset came around the corner and looked at his shirt and his boots and his hands, and made a decision about him in about a quarter of a second. "Service elevators around back." "Dispatch sent me to 41, power issue." "Service, elevator, around back." "Ma'am, 41's the executive floor. The service car only goes to 38. "Then walk," she said and left. Noah walked. 3 flights in boots with a 40-pound box at 5:31 in the morning. And here's the thing about Noah Bennett that mattered. The thing you had to understand about him before you understood anything else, he didn't get angry. He'd been out of anger for years. Anger was a luxury item like cable, like new shoes, like a wife who stayed. He'd let it go a long time ago because it cost more than he made. He just walked. Because his daughter needed an inhaler, and inhalers cost $63. Chapter Pate. The East Wing was dark and dead quiet, and Noah found the fault in 11 minutes. It was a relay in the wall panel behind the executive suite, corroded, arcing, the kind of thing that had been failing for months, and would have kept failing until somebody's hard drive fried or somebody's office caught fire. He pulled it, seated a spare, and the lights came up steady and gold down the whole corridor. He didn't smile, but something in him loosened. This was the one part of Noah Bennett's life that ever obeyed him. Broken thing goes in. Working thing comes out. Nothing else in 34 years had ever been that clean. He put his tools away. And then, because he was who he was, he didn't leave. He walked the wing. Every switch. Every outlet. Every junction. Because if he'd fixed the relay and something else on that circuit was cooked and it burned 6 months from now, he'd know. He'd always know. That was the whole problem with Noah. He couldn't do half of anything. 10 doors. All fine. And then the last one. Frosted glass. No nameplate, which he'd learn later was the whole point. You didn't need a nameplate when everybody already knew. Noah knocked. Twice. Standard. Nothing. He knocked again, said building maintenance, and heard nothing because, and this was the detail that would come out later, the detail that would matter. The sound dampening in that office was rated for boardroom privacy, and a knock on that door from the outside was on the inside, a soft tap you'd miss entirely if you had earbuds in. Victoria Ashford had earbuds in. Noah pushed the door open with his shoulder because his hands were full. And the world stopped. She was standing in the middle of the floor with her back half turned. One arm out of a blouse, the other still in it, and she turned at exactly the wrong second, and for one full, terrible, endless heartbeat, Noah Bennett and Victoria Ashford looked directly at each other. Noah's toolbox hit the ground. The crash was enormous. He spun around so fast, he hit his shoulder on the doorframe hard enough to leave a bruise he'd find that night. He faced the hallway. He put his hands up like a man being arrested. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't know anybody was... I'm sorry." His voice didn't sound like his voice. It sounded like a kid's. Behind him, nothing. No scream. No gasp. No sound at all. That was worse. God, that was so much worse. "There's the door, didn't have a... I knocked, ma'am. I swear to God I knocked twice. I said maintenance." Nothing. Noah stood in that hallway with his back to the most powerful woman in the state, and his heart slamming so hard he could feel it in his teeth, and every single thing in his life went through his head at once. Not slowly. All at once, in a single flat sheet of terror. The job. The insurance. Lily's inhaler is at 9 puffs. 9 puffs and no coverage, and no job, and no reference, and no explanation that any human being would ever believe. Because who believes the janitor? Nobody. Nobody believes the janitor. He heard fabric. He heard her moving. And then finally, her voice. It wasn't loud. That was the thing that got him. It was calm flat, even the voice of a woman reading a number off a page. "Stay where you are." "Yes, ma'am." "Don't move." "I'm not moving." "Don't move, and don't say another word for 10 seconds. Noah didn't move and didn't say another word for 10 seconds. He counted them. Every one. It was the longest thing that had ever happened to him. Then, turn around. He turned around. Victoria Ashford was dressed, blazer buttoned, hair pushed back with one hand, and she was looking at him with an expression he'd never seen on a human face before. Not rage, not embarrassment, but a kind of scanning, like he was a document she was reading very carefully for a clause somebody had tried to bury. He was 6'1". She was maybe 5'7" in heels. She had the entire room anyway. "You knocked," she said. "Twice." "Yes, ma'am." "I didn't hear you." "I understand. Do you?" It wasn't a question. She tilted her head slightly. "There's a light on the wall outside that door. It turns red when the room's occupied. Did you look at it?" Noah opened his mouth, closed it, because God help him, he had a terrible answer. "The light's on the same circuit I just repaired, ma'am," he said. "It was dead. That's why I was up here." Something moved behind her eyes. Very fast. Gone. "Say that again." "The occupancy indicator. It runs off the east wing relay. That relay's been failing for honestly, ma'am, judging by the corrosion months. That's why your lights were cycling. I replaced it 11 minutes ago. The light works now." He swallowed. "It didn't work when I walked up to your door." Victoria Ashford was quiet for a long moment. "So the reason you walked in on me," she said slowly, "is the exact reason you were sent up here in the first place." "Yes, ma'am. That's either the truth or the best lie I've heard in 4 years." "It's the truth. They're never that clean." "I'm sorry." "The truth," she said. "The truth is never that clean. That's how I know when people are lying to me. Real life is messy. Lies are tidy." She folded her arms. "Yours is very tidy. Mr. Bennett. Noah Bennett. Yours is very tidy, Mr. Bennett." And Noah, who had not lost his temper in 6 years, who had let a woman leave him, and let a landlord raise him, and let a supervisor humiliate him, and let a girl with a headset send him up 3 flights of stairs, heard something crack in his chest. "Then go look at it." Her eyebrows went up a half-inch. It was the first genuine expression he'd seen from her. "Excuse me? Go look at the relay, ma'am." His voice was steady, but it was low, and it had something in it now. "It's in the panel behind that wall. It's in my hand, actually, the old one. It's right here in my pocket. It's black on one side. It's been arcing for a year. It's a fire waiting to happen, and nobody looked at it because it's behind a wall, and nobody in this building looks behind walls." He held it out. His hand shook. You can fire me. That's fine. That's okay. That's yours to do. But don't stand there and tell me I'm a liar. I've got nothing else. I've got a truck that doesn't start, and $400 and a kid, and the only thing I own outright is that I don't lie. So take the job. Don't take that. The words got away from him at the end. He heard them leave. He stood there and felt the blood go out of his face because he'd just said all of that out loud to her, and there was no putting it back. Victoria Ashford looked at the corroded relay in his shaking hand. She didn't take it. She looked at his face instead, and she said very quietly, "You have a kid." Noah didn't answer. Mr. Bennett. Yes, ma'am. How old? 7. Boy or girl? Girl. Name? Ma'am, I don't... Name. Lily. Noah said. Victoria Ashford walked past him to her desk. She didn't sit. She put both hands on it and stood there with her back to him, and Noah, who had spent 2 years learning to read a building the way some men read a horse, realized something that made no sense at all. She was buying time. The most powerful woman in the state was standing at her own desk buying herself 5 seconds. Then she turned around. You just walked into my private office at 5:40 in the morning, she said. You saw something no one in this company has permission to see. And in the last 90 seconds, you have not once tried to apologize to me. Noah blinked. I apologized 4 times. Apologized. You apologized for the door. She pointed at him. You apologized for the procedure. You apologized for the light. You have been terrified this entire conversation, genuinely terrified. I can see your hands, and every single thing coming out of your mouth has been about the job, not about me. Not once about how I feel. Not once. Noah felt his face go hot. I didn't think I was allowed to ask how you feel, ma'am. The room went very still. Victoria Ashford's mouth opened slightly, and then closed. And Noah Bennett watched something happen to a billionaire's face that he would remember for the rest of his life. It changed. Just for a second. Just at the corners. Like a wall with one brick pulled out of it. Ask, she said. Ma'am, ask me right now. Noah didn't understand. He didn't understand at all. But he was standing in a room with his career already in the ground, and there was nothing left to lose, so he asked her the only way he knew how, the way he'd ask anybody, the way he'd ask Marcus, the way he'd ask a man at a bus stop. Are you okay? And Victoria Ashford, 29 years old, CEO of a company with a market cap of $11 billion, a woman who'd been on the cover of 2 magazines that year and had not been asked that question by another human being in 4 years, stood in the middle of her office and did not answer for a very long time. Then she said, no. Just that. One word, then immediately briskly, like slamming a door, pick up your toolbox. Yes, ma'am. Look at me. He looked at her. You will not repeat a word of this conversation, she said. Not to your supervisor. Not to your friends, not to a reporter, not to a lawyer, not to anyone who offers you money, and someone will offer you money. Mr. Bennett, that's not a threat. That's a weather report. I wasn't going to say anything anyway. Everyone says that. Then I guess you'll find out, Noah said, and picked up his toolbox and walked out. He got 4 steps down the hall. Bennett. He stopped. She was in the doorway. And her voice was different, smaller somehow, and that was the strangest thing yet, because Noah didn't think that woman had a smaller voice. The relay, she said. You said it's been failing for months. Yes, ma'am. Who's responsible for that panel? Facilities vendor management. Not me. I'm just the guy they call at 4:52 in the morning. Who signs off on the inspections? Noah hesitated. Ma'am, I really shouldn't. Who signs off, Mr. Bennett? And Noah, who had 2 years of inspection tags in his memory, the way other men have batting averages, said the name. Sterling. Everything on the exec floor gets signed off by Sterling's office. Victoria Ashford went completely still. Not tense. Still. The stillness of a woman who has just heard a floorboard creak in a house she thought was empty. "Say that again," she said. Gregory Sterling. His office signs the inspection tags. Everyone on this floor's got his initials on it going back. Noah stopped. "Ma'am, are you?" "Everyone," she said. "Yes." "Signed." "Yes." "Meaning inspected." "Meaning signed." Noah said carefully, and he watched her hear the difference, and he watched her understand it, and he watched the color go out of her face by about 10%. "Mr. Bennett," Victoria Ashford said, "do not throw that relay away." He didn't sleep that night. He sat on the couch at 11 p.m. with the old relay on the coffee table in front of him, like a dead bird turning his phone over and over in his hands, and Lily came out at 11:20 because she'd heard him moving. "You're not sleeping." "Neither are you." "I asked first." "That's not how it works." She climbed up next to him anyway and looked at the burnt piece of plastic on the table. "What's that?" "Something broken." "Can you fix it?" "No," Noah said. "This one you can't fix. This one you just take out and show people." Lily considered that with the enormous seriousness of a 7-year-old. "Show who?" And Noah Bennett looked at the piece of scorched plastic that a billionaire had told him not to throw away, and felt for the first time in a decade the very specific cold that comes when a small man realizes he is standing in the doorway of something extremely large. "I don't know yet, Bug," he said. "Go to bed." 3 days went by. Nothing happened. That was the worst part. Noah had braced for the axe, and instead he got silence, and silence is a thing that eats a man from the inside. He went to work. He fixed a compressor on 9, a card reader on 14, a burst line in the third-floor kitchen that soaked $2,000 of ceiling tile. He kept his head down. He didn't look at the elevator. He didn't look up. On day 4, his phone buzzed at 2:15 in the afternoon. HR. Conference room 3. Now. Noah stood in a flooded kitchen with a wrench in his hand and read it 3 times. There it was. He walked to the truck first. Sat in it for a minute. Called Mrs. Kowalski. "Rita, it's Noah. Hey, if I'm late tonight, can you—" "How late?" "I don't know." Something in his voice must have come through the phone because the old woman's tone changed. "Noah, what happened?" "Nothing happened. Can you take her or not?" "I can take her." "Thank you." Noah. He hung up. He sat there with both hands on the wheel. And Noah Bennett, 34 years old, who had not cried when his wife left, who had not cried at his father's funeral, who had not cried once in the entire ugly grinding decade of his adult life, put his forehead on the steering wheel of a truck that took 4 tries to start and let himself have exactly 10 seconds. Then he got out and went to conference room 3. There were 2 of them, an HR woman with a folder and a man in a suit standing by the window who did not introduce himself and never sat down. Noah clocked him immediately. Guys like that were always the ones who mattered. "Mr. Bennett, have a seat." "I'll stand." "Please sit." He sat. The HR woman opened the folder. "You've been with the vendor 2 years. 2 years and 4 months. No write-ups, no incidents." She turned a page. "Your supervisor's evaluation says, quote, does other people's work and doesn't mention it." Noah said nothing. "On the morning of the 12th, you were dispatched to the executive floor." "Here we go." "Yes, ma'am." "Do you want to tell me what happened up there?" And this right here was the moment. Noah understood that perfectly. This was the fork. He could tell them. He could say she was changing. "I walked in, it was an accident." Ask her. She'll confirm it. And maybe they'd believe him, and maybe they wouldn't, but at least his version would be on the record before somebody else wrote a different one. Every instinct he had screamed at him to say it. "I replaced a failed relay in the east wing panel," Noah said. "Restored power. Checked the circuit. Left. That's it. That's it. You were on that floor for 31 minutes. It's a big floor. The HR woman looked at him for a long moment. The man by the window turned his head. Nothing else happened, she said. Nothing else happened, Noah said. And the man by the window spoke for the first time, and his voice was pleasant, and something about it made the hair on Noah's arms stand up. You're sure about that? I'm sure. Because if something had happened, the man said, something inappropriate, something that made anyone uncomfortable, this would be the moment to say so. In a room, with a witness, where you're protected. Noah looked at him. And Noah Bennett, who fixed things, who read buildings, who had spent his whole life learning to hear the difference between a system running right and a system about to fail, heard it. He's not protecting me. He's fishing. He wants me to say it happened. Nothing happened, Noah said very slowly, and I'd appreciate it if you'd stop asking me to say it did. The room got extremely quiet. The man by the window smiled with his mouth. Well, he said. That's fine. The HR woman closed the folder, opened a second one, and slid a single sheet of paper across the table. Then this is yours. Noah looked down. It was an offer letter. Position Executive Technical Specialist. Direct Report Office of the CEO. Salary $94,000. And below that one line, and Noah read it 4 times, and the 4th time the word swam. Benefits effective immediately. Medical dental vision employee, plus 1 dependent. Noah didn't move. He didn't move for so long that the HR woman said his name. Mr. Bennett? His hands were flat on the table. $94,000 was more than he had made in the last 2 years combined. Effective immediately meant Lily's inhaler. Effective immediately meant the specialist. Effective immediately meant a pediatric pulmonologist he had looked up 8 months ago on a library computer and closed the tab on because there was a number next to the name. Who? His voice failed. He tried again. Who signed this? Ms. Ashford, personally. Why? I'm sorry. Why? Noah looked up. Ma'am, I'm a building tech. People like me don't get this. There's a reason. There's always a reason. What's the reason? And the man by the window said softly, That's a very good question. Nobody answered it. He signed it. Of course he signed it. You want to know what a man does when his daughter has 9 puffs left in an inhaler? He signs it. He signs it with a hand that won't stop shaking, and he doesn't read the back page, and he says thank you twice. He walked out into the hallway and got about 40 feet before he had to put his hand on the wall. His phone was already out. He was already dialing the pharmacy. He was already Mr. Bennett. Noah turned. The man from the window was standing behind him. He hadn't heard him come. Up close, he was maybe 50 silver at the temples, and he had the friendliest face Noah had ever seen on a person, and everything in Noah's body was screaming. Gregory Sterling, the man said, and put out his hand. Chief Operating Officer. We didn't get properly introduced. Noah's stomach dropped straight through the floor. Sterling. Everything on the exec floor gets signed off by Sterling's office. He shook the hand. It would have been strange not to. Congratulations, Sterling said warmly. Really, that's a hell of a jump. Thank you, sir. 94,000. Sterling whistled low. You know what I made at 34.52? Different times. He clapped Noah on the shoulder and left his hand there. Can I give you some advice, man to man? Sure. Victoria's a brilliant woman. Genuinely brilliant. I've known her since she was 19. I ran this company for her father. Sterling's voice was so kind, so warm. But she's under an enormous amount of pressure, and pressure does things to people. She's made some decisions this year that have worried the board. Impulsive ones. Noah said nothing. And when someone in her position suddenly promotes a maintenance contractor to a direct report at the CEO's office, Sterling said gently, with no posting, no interview panel, no HR review, people are going to ask what happened in that office on the morning of the 12th. The hallway was very long and very empty. "Nothing happened," Noah said. "I believe you," Sterling smiled. "I do. But son, it's not going to matter what's true. It's going to matter what's documented." He squeezed Noah's shoulder. Now if there were somebody willing to write down what actually occurred up there accurately, no exaggeration, just the facts, that person would be doing this company a real service. And people who do this company a real service get taken care of, long after other people are gone. Noah stood very still. "You're asking me to write a statement," he said. "I'm asking you to tell the truth. About a woman who just paid for my kid's medicine." Sterling's smile didn't move a millimeter. "About a woman," he said, "who just paid for your kid's medicine 4 days after you walked in on her undressed. Think about how that reads, Noah. Think about how that reads in a deposition." And Noah Bennett, who had not been angry in 6 years, felt the whole thing come back at once. 6 years of it, hot and total, and it took everything he had left to keep his voice flat. "Mr. Sterling," he said, "can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "Those inspection tags on the East Wing panel, the ones with your office's initials on them, going back 11 months. The smile stopped. Just stopped. Like a machine unplugged. "Who actually went behind that wall?" Noah asked. "'Cause that relay's been arcing for a year, sir. It's been throwing sparks behind drywall for a year on the floor where she sits, and somebody signed a paper every single month that said they looked at it." He held Sterling's eyes. "So either your inspectors are blind or they never went. And I've been in that panel. There's no dust trail. Nobody's opened it in a year." The silence went on a long, long time. Then Gregory Sterling laughed a real laugh, delighted, genuine, and shook his head and took his hand off Noah's shoulder. "Oh," he said softly. "She found you." "What?" "Nothing." Sterling straightened his cuff. "Congratulations again, Mr. Bennett. Truly. $94,000 is a life-changing amount of money for a man in your circumstances." He walked 3 steps, then turned back, and his face was pleasant and open and completely empty. "You should enjoy it," Gregory Sterling said. "Things change so fast in this building." Noah drove to the pharmacy. He stood at the counter and slid the new insurance card across, and the kid behind the register typed it in, and Noah stood there for 11 seconds, absolutely certain it was going to come back. Denied. Absolutely certain. This was the joke. Absolutely certain. The floor was about to open. "Okay," the kid said. "That's $4. Noah didn't move. "Sir, it's $4. "Say that again." $4, your copay." Noah Bennett stood in the pharmacy in the middle of the afternoon and put both hands on the counter and lowered his head, and the kid behind the register said, "Sir, are you okay?" And Noah couldn't answer him. He genuinely could not answer him. $63 had been eating him alive for 11 days, and it was $4. $4. He paid with a 5. He told the kid to keep it. He got into his truck, and it started on the first try for the first time in a year, and Noah laughed out loud once a terrible cracked sound, and then he drove home. Lily was at the window when he pulled up. She was always at the window. He came through the door and she launched off the couch at him, and he caught her one-armed and held up the white paper bag with the other. "What's that?" "That," Noah said, "is a whole one of these. Brand new. Full. Not almost empty. Full." Lily's eyes got very big. She knew exactly what it was. That was the awful part. She was 7, and she knew exactly what it was and exactly what it meant. "Did you get a raise?" "Something like that." "Daddy?" She grabbed his face with both hands, which was the single greatest thing that had ever happened to him. "Did you get a raise?" "I got a raise bug." "How much?" "Enough." "Enough for what?" And Noah Bennett stood in his doorway holding his daughter and heard very clearly in the back of his skull a pleasant voice saying things change so fast in this building, and felt the piece of burnt plastic in his jacket pocket like a stone. "Enough for everything," he said. "Go get your homework." Boy. His phone rang at 9:40 that night. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Bennett. He knew the voice instantly. There was no version of him that wouldn't have. Ma'am. Are you alone? Noah looked at the closed bedroom door. Lily's breathing was even. Steady. Good. Yes. Did Sterling talk to you today? Noah's mouth went dry. How do you know that? Because I put you in that room so he would, Victoria Ashford said. Mr. Bennett, I need you to listen to me very carefully, and I need you to understand that I am about to tell you something that will make your life significantly more dangerous, and I am telling you anyway because you are the only person in that building I know for a fact isn't lying to me. Noah sat down on the couch very slowly. That relay didn't corrode, she said. Ma'am, somebody made it corrode, Victoria said. And that occupancy light being dead the exact morning you walked into my office wasn't luck, Mr. Bennett. It was the third time this year something on my floor has failed in a way that put me in a room I shouldn't have been in with a witness I wasn't supposed to have. Noah stared at the wall. Do you understand what I'm telling you? No, he said honestly. No, ma'am, I don't. Then let me be clear. And on the other end of the line, in an empty office 41 floors above a sleeping city, Victoria Ashford said, You didn't walk in on me by accident, Noah. Somebody spent 11 months arranging it, and they picked you because you were poor enough to buy. Noah didn't say anything for a long time. The refrigerator hummed. Down the hall, his daughter breathed evenly in and out the sound he'd built his whole life around. Say that again, he said. You heard me. I want to hear it again. They picked you, Victoria said, because you were poor enough to buy. Noah stood up. He didn't know why. He just stood up in the middle of his own living room at 9:41 at night with a phone against his ear and nowhere to go. Ma'am, that doesn't make sense. Nobody knows who I am. I'm not, you don't understand. I'm not anybody. Dispatch doesn't even know my first name. They call me Bennett, or they call me the guy with the truck. Dispatch sent you to my floor at 4:52 in the morning. Because the power was out. Who called it in? Noah opened his mouth. He closed it. Mr. Bennett. I don't know, he said slowly. It came through dispatch. I never asked. There's no work order, Victoria said. I looked 4 times. There is no work order on that call. There's a dispatch text sent to your phone from a company account at 4:52 a.m., and there is nothing behind it. No ticket. No requester. No name. Somebody sent you up there and made sure nobody would ever be able to say who. Noah sat back down. He sat down harder than he meant to. That's not possible. Everything's possible if somebody has enough access. Then who? Don't say a name on the phone, Victoria said. Not on this phone, not on any phone. The line went quiet, and in that quiet, Noah heard something he hadn't expected, and it took him a second to recognize it because he'd never heard it from her before. She was scared. Not panicked, not shaking. But underneath all that flat, careful control was a woman who had been holding her breath for a very long time, and Noah, who could hear a compressor going bad from 2 rooms away, who could tell you a bearing was failing. 3 weeks before it failed, heard it clean. Ma'am, he said, can I say something? Go ahead. You said this was the 3rd time. Yes. What were the other 2? Victoria was quiet. You called me, Noah said. At 9:40 at night. You called me. So either you tell me what I'm standing in the middle of, or you let me go back to fixing card readers and you find somebody else because I'm not, ma'am. I've got a kid asleep 40 feet from me. I can't be brave and blind at the same time. Pick one. That's fair. Then pick. February, Victoria said. The elevator on my private car stopped between 38 and 39 and held me there for 51 minutes. Alone. With a man from an investor group who'd been in the car with me. The maintenance log said sensor fault. 2 weeks later, that man's firm circulated a note to the board saying I'd been, quote, emotionally erratic under stress. Jesus. April, my office door lock failed during a call with counsel. failed open. Two people walked in on privileged conversation. The board found out what I said about them within 9 days. And the 12th, she said. You. Noah pressed his fingers into his eyes. 3 failures, he said. All electrical, all on your floor, all signed off by the same office. Now you understand why I told you not to throw that relay away. Ma'am, you need police. You need the FBI. You need somebody with a badge and a lawyer. You don't need a guy who... I need somebody who can go behind a wall, Victoria said, without a single person in that building thinking twice about it. Tell me who else does that, Mr. Bennett. Tell me who else can walk into any room on any floor at any hour and nobody even lifts their head. You want to know why nobody's caught this in 11 months? Because whoever's doing it is doing it behind walls, and there are exactly 2 kinds of people who go behind walls in that building. The people doing it, Noah said, and you. He didn't answer. I'm not asking you to be brave, Victoria said. I'm asking you to do your job and tell me what you see. That's all. That's literally all. You already did it once, and you did it in 90 seconds while you thought I was going to fire you. And what happens when they figure out I'm looking? Then you'll know I was right, she said. Noah laughed. It wasn't a good laugh. That's a hell of a thing to say to a man with a 7-year-old. There was a pause on the line, a real one. Yes, Victoria said. It is. And then quieter. I know what I'm asking. I want you to understand that I know. I'm not one of those people who says a thing like that and doesn't hear it. I hear it, and I'm asking anyway because I don't have anybody else, and I've spent 4 years making very sure I wouldn't. Noah stared at the wall. Why me? He said. Really, not the wall thing. The real reason. Because you told me not to call you a liar, Victoria said, while you were holding a piece of evidence and shaking so hard you could barely stand up. Do you know how many people have raised their voice to me in 4 years? No, 2. One of them was my father. The other one was you, and you did it while you thought you were about to lose your daughter's health insurance. She exhaled. That's not courage, Mr. Bennett. Courage is cheap. That's something else. That's a man who has exactly one thing left and won't put it down. Noah closed his eyes. Okay, he said. Okay. Okay, Noah said. I'll look. The new badge worked on every door in the building. That was the first thing that went wrong. Noah swiped it at the executive elevator on Monday morning, and the light went green and the doors opened, and he stood there like a man who'd been shoved through a hole in a fence. On his old badge, the exec elevator was a locked country. Now it just opened. And the woman with the headset, the same one, the one who'd sent him up 3 flights of stairs in the dark, was standing right there. And she saw the light go green, and she saw his face, and something in her expression curdled. That's the executive car, she said. I know. That's a restricted. Ma'am, I know, Noah said. You want to scan it here. He held out the badge. Scan it. I'd rather you scan it than stand there thinking I stole it. She scanned it. She looked at the screen, then at him, then at the screen again. Direct report, she said. Office of the CEO. That's what it says? You were fixing a sink on 3 last week. I was fixing a burst line on 3 last week, yeah. How? How what? How, she said. And Noah, who had been asked that same question in that same tone 4 separate times in the last 5 days, got in the elevator and let the doors close and said nothing at all because he'd figured out by then that there was no answer that helped him. If he said I don't know, they heard a liar. If he said she promoted me, they heard the rest of it. Everything he could say made it worse, so he said nothing. And by Wednesday, the whole building had filled the silence for him. You gotta hear what they're saying, Marcus said. I don't gotta hear anything. You gotta hear it, Noah, because I can't unhear it, and I need somebody else to carry it with me. Marcus was in the truck cab with him in the parking garage at 6 p.m. where nobody went. Okay, Version 1. You caught her doing something. Blackmail. You got dirt and she bought you. Great. Version 2. You're sleeping with her. Marcus. Version 3. Marcus said, and this is the popular one. This is the one that's got legs. You're her plant. She put a guy in facilities so she'd have eyes downstairs, 'cause she's paranoid, 'cause she's cracking up, 'cause everybody upstairs knows she's cracking up. Noah went very still. Everybody knows that. Everybody says it. Who's everybody? Everybody's everybody. No, Noah said. Marcus, who started it? Who said it first? You've been here 11 years. You know the pipes in this place better than I know mine. Somebody said it first. Who? Marcus looked out the windshield for a long moment. You know what I do for a living? He said. You run security. I run cameras, Marcus said. I sit in a room and I watch cameras, and I've been doing it since Clinton. And you know what that means? It means I don't say names Noah. Not in cars. Not in bars. Not to guys I like. Especially not to guys I like. Marcus, I got 14 months to my pension. Marcus's voice cracked just slightly, and it was the first time in 2 years Noah had ever heard him sound old. 14 months. My wife's got a thing with her hip she can't work, and I got 14 months, and then I'm out with the whole package. You understand what I'm telling you? Yeah. Do you? Yeah, Marcus, I understand what you're telling me. No, you don't, 'cause you're gonna ask me anyway. Marcus turned and looked at him. That's what kills me about you, man. You're gonna ask me anyway. You've been asking me anyway since the day I met you. Noah didn't say anything. Ask? Marcus said. The February elevator. The one that stuck 51 minutes. Yeah. Who pulled the footage? Marcus put his head back against the seat and laughed at the ceiling of the truck, and there was no humor in it at all. There isn't any, he said. What? There isn't any footage, Noah. 51 minutes of a stuck car on the executive line and there's a hole in the drive. The system says the write failed. Happens sometimes, cheap hardware, bad sector, whatever. He rubbed his face. It happened in February. It happened again in April. It happened on the 12th. Noah felt the blood leave his hands. The 12th. 5:20 to 5:58 a.m., Marcus said. Executive floor cameras. 38 minutes. Gone. That's the exact window I was up there. Yeah. That's the exact window. Yeah, Noah. Marcus? That means there's no proof I didn't. Noah stopped. He heard himself. He heard exactly what it meant. There's no proof of anything. Not what I did, not what I didn't do. It's my word against whatever anybody wants to write down. Now you're getting it. Who has access to the drive? Stop. Who has access to the drive, Marcus? And Marcus Doyle, 59 years old. 14 months from a pension wife with a bad hip, sat in the passenger seat of a truck that took 4 tries to start, and said very quietly, Facilities vendor management requests the retention purges. It's a cost thing. Storage costs money, so somebody upstairs signs off on what gets kept and what gets rolled over. He swallowed. Guess whose office signs off? Noah put both hands on the wheel. Say it, he said. You already know. Say it anyway, please. Sterling, Marcus said. Everything goes through Sterling. He looked. That's all he did at first. He looked the way he'd been looking at buildings for 12 years, and here's the thing about a man like Noah Bennett that nobody upstairs ever understood. He didn't need a warrant. He needed dust. Dust doesn't lie. Dust is the most honest thing in a building. You open a panel that's genuinely been inspected every month for 11 months. There's a trail fingerprints in the film on the inside of the door. A wipe mark where somebody's sleeve dragged. Scratches on the screw heads where a driver's bitten in over and over. A panel that gets touched looks like it gets touched. Noah opened 9 panels on the executive floor over 5 days. 8 of them had one set of screw scratches. 1. Meaning they'd been opened exactly once since installation, and Noah could tell you when, because the install date was stamped inside the door. 4 years ago. 4 years of monthly inspection tags. 4 years of initials. And nobody had ever put a screwdriver in that panel but the guys who built it. Except the ninth. The ninth panel was the east wing. The one behind Victoria's office. And that one had been opened over and over, fresh bite marks on the screws, a wipe mark on the inside of the door, and something else, something that made Noah stop breathing for a second. A single strand of insulation snagged on the panel lip. Blue. 12 gauge. The building's original wiring was gray. Somebody had run new wire in there. Somebody had run new wire behind a wall on the CEO's floor and signed a piece of paper every month that said nobody had been in there at all. Blue, Victoria said. Blue. And that means what exactly? I need you to say it like I'm an idiot, Mr. Bennett, because in this specific subject I am. They were in her office at 7:40 in the evening with the door open. Noah had insisted the door stay open, and she'd looked at him for a long second and then said, "Good," and that was that. He stood. He never sat in that room. He'd tried once and it felt like putting his boots on somebody's table. It means somebody added a circuit, Noah said. You don't run new wire to fix old wire. You run new wire to do something. And whatever they ran it for, they ran it to the relay that failed on the 12th, the lock that failed in April, and the sensor line on your elevator. All three. All three. You're sure? No, Noah said. Victoria blinked. No, ma'am, I'm not sure. I'm a building tech, not a forensic engineer. If I say I'm sure and I'm wrong, you go to a board with a piece of insulation and a theory and they eat you alive, and I put you in the ground myself. He looked at her. So no, I'm not sure. I'm 90%. And the 10%'s got your whole life in it, so I'm not going to lie to you about it just because it'd feel better. Victoria Ashford looked at him for a long, long moment. Do you know, she said, that you're the only person who said, I'm not sure to me in this building in 4 years. That can't be true. It's completely true. Ma'am, that's how do you run anything if nobody says, I don't know, Victoria said. That's the point. I don't know. I've been standing on a floor for 4 years and every single person in this company has told me it's solid, and it turns out somebody's been cutting the joists. And the only reason I found out is that a man walked in on me in my underwear at 5:40 in the morning and was too honest to lie about a light switch. She laughed then. It shocked him. It genuinely shocked him. It wasn't a boardroom laugh. It wasn't polished. It cracked in the middle, and Noah realized with a jolt that she was about half a step from coming apart, and had probably been half a step from it for a year. That's not funny, he said. It's a little funny. It's not funny at all, ma'am. Stop calling me ma'am. No. Excuse me. No, Noah said. Respectfully. If I start calling you Victoria in this building, that's the whole story. That's it right there. That's what they need. They don't need a photo. They don't need a witness. They need one guy in a work shirt in a hallway saying your first name where somebody hears it. He shook his head. It's ma'am. It's gonna be ma'am forever. I'm sorry. Victoria stood there, and then she said so quietly he almost missed it. You've thought about this more than my lawyers have. Ma'am, I've thought about nothing but this for 9 days. The pressure started on a Tuesday, not on him. Noah could have taken it if it came at him. That was the whole design of the thing, he understood later. You don't hit a man like Noah Bennett with a hammer. You don't have to. You just reach around him. It started with Rita Kowalski calling at 2 in the afternoon and saying in a voice he'd never heard her use, Noah, who's Jessica? Noah's hand stopped moving on the wrench. What? There's a woman who came to the school, Rita said. At pickup. She had a folder. She said she was from a family services group and she wanted to ask some questions about Lily's home situation, and she said the name Jessica and Noah. I swear to God I didn't tell her anything, I said. Get away from that child. But she was standing right there at the fence. Rita. His voice came out level. He didn't know how. Where's Lily right now? She's in my kitchen eating a popsicle. Is she okay? She's fine. She didn't even see. Noah, who's Jessica? Noah put his forehead against the cold metal of the panel he'd been working on. Jessica's her mother, he said. He got the call 90 minutes later. He was in his truck in the parking garage because that was where he lived now apparently, and the number was a 480. Area code he didn't recognize, and he answered it because his hands weren't taking orders anymore. Noah. And 7 years fell on him at once. Jess. Hi. She sounded nervous. She sounded like she'd rehearsed. That was the part that told him everything. Jessica had never rehearsed anything in her life. So this is okay. This is going to sound insane. But I got a call from a lawyer. Like an actual lawyer from an actual firm. And he said, Noah. He said there's a situation with Lily's living conditions. And I have rights. I didn't know I had. And he'd handle everything he said. The whole thing's free. Jessica. And I know, okay. I know what I did. I'm not saying Jessica, stop. But he said she has asthma. He said she's got an asthma thing, and she wasn't insured for 4 months, and there's a record of it. There's a pharmacy record where you didn't fill her. Jessica. She stopped. Noah sat in his truck with his eyes shut. What's his name? He said. What? The lawyer. What's his name? I don't Miller something. Why does that? Who's paying him? He said it's free? Nothing's free, Noah said. Jess, listen to me. Listen. 7 years. 7 years, and I never called you. Not once. Not for money, not for a birthday, not when she had pneumonia at 4, and I sat in a hallway for 2 days. I never called you. Did I? Silence. Did I? No, Jessica said. So I'm calling now, and I'm asking you one thing, and then I'll never call you again as long as I live. His voice finally broke right in the middle, and he hated it. Don't let them use you to get to me. That's all this is. That's all you are to them, Jess. You're a lever. They found the worst thing in my life, and they picked it up, and they're swinging it at my head, and the second I fold, they're gonna drop you, and you'll never hear from that lawyer again. Jessica was crying. He could hear it. He said I could see her, she whispered. And Noah Bennett, 34 years old, $94,000 a year, $4 for an inhaler, put his hand over his mouth and made a sound in that truck that he would never tell another living person about. You can see her, he said when he could. Jess. God. You could always see her. You could have seen her any day of the last 7 years. Nobody ever stopped you. Nobody ever stopped you. The line was quiet for a very long time. I know, Jessica said, and she hung up. He went upstairs. He didn't take the elevator. He took the stairs, all 41 of them, and by the time he got to the top, he couldn't feel his legs and didn't care, and he walked past the woman with the headset and past 2 people in suits and pushed open a frosted glass door, for the second time in his life, without knocking. Victoria was on a call. She took one look at him and said, I'll call you back, and hung up on somebody who was almost certainly extremely important. What happened? They went to my kid's school. Victoria stood up. They went to my kid's school, Noah said, and his voice was doing something he couldn't control, with a folder at pickup, and there was a woman at the fence, 40 feet from my daughter, and they found my ex-wife in Arizona, and they gave her a free lawyer, and they're gonna use the 4 months. Lily didn't have an inhaler, the 4 months I couldn't pay for. They're gonna use my kid not being able to breathe as the reason to take her. Noah. And I did nothing, ma'am. I did nothing. I fixed a relay. And I didn't lie about it, and that's the whole thing I did. Noah. He stopped. She'd said his first name. He noticed it. And it landed somewhere strange in him, and he shoved it away. Sit down, Victoria said. I don't sit in here. Sit down. I don't sit in here, ma'am. I've never sat in here. I'm not gonna start now, because I'm falling apart. That's the worst time to start. And Victoria Ashford crossed her office, took a chair, dragged it across the floor with a sound like a scream, put it directly behind him and said, Sit down before you fall down. He sat down. He sat down and put his elbows on his knees and his hands over the back of his head, and breathed, and she stood over him, and neither of them said anything for a full minute. Then Victoria said very quietly, "This is my fault." "Don't." "It is." "Ma'am, don't do that, that's not—" "I put your name on a piece of paper," she said. "Executive Technical Specialist, Direct Report Office of the CEO. I did that. I wrote it and I signed it, and I did it fast because I wanted your insurance active before the 1st of the month, because you said your daughter was 7 and I—" She stopped. She actually stopped. "I moved fast and I made you visible. That's what I did. I took the one man in this building nobody looked at and I put a light on him." Noah lifted his head. "You did that for the insurance?" "Yes." "You could have done it slow. Posted the job. Interview panel. 6 weeks, nobody blinks." "Yes." "Why didn't you—" And Victoria Ashford said, "Because 6 weeks is 6 weeks." Noah looked at her. "Because your daughter's inhaler was almost empty," she said. "And you told me that in a hallway while you thought I was going to fire you." And I went back to my desk, and I sat there, and I could not. I could not. I sat there for 40 minutes, Mr. Bennett. I have a company with 11,000 employees, and I sat at my desk for 40 minutes doing nothing because I couldn't stop thinking about the number 9. "The number 9. 9 puffs," Victoria said. "You said 9 puffs. Did you know you said that? You said it under your breath. You didn't even know you said it out loud." Noah couldn't speak. "So I signed it fast," she said. "And in doing that, I put a target on a child, and I would like you to understand that I know that, and that I will be carrying it for a very long time, and that there is no version of this where I get to say I meant well and be done." The office was quiet. "Ma'am?" Noah said. "Yes. That's the first time anybody's ever done something stupid for me." Victoria's face did something complicated. "That's a horrible thing to say," she said. "It's the nicest thing I've said in 10 years, Noah said. "You gotta understand my range." And she laughed that cracked, real, unpolished laugh and covered her mouth like it had escaped without permission, and Noah sat in a chair on the 41st floor and laughed too wetly badly, and for about 4 seconds, 2 of the loneliest people in that city were not lonely. Then Victoria said, "I'm going to fix this." "Ma'am, I'm going to fix this," she said, "and you're not going to like how." She did it the next morning in a room with 9 people in it, and Noah wasn't there, but he heard about it within an hour, because Marcus heard about it within 20 minutes. She put it on the agenda. She stood up in front of the executive committee and said in a voice that carried to the back of the room that she was aware of a rumor circulating in the building regarding her personal conduct and a member of the facility's staff, that the rumor was false, that it had been manufactured, and that she was retaining outside counsel to determine who had manufactured it. And then she said the sentence that went through the building like a fire through a paper mill. "And if anyone in this room has spoken to that man's ex-wife or to his daughter's school, I want you to understand that you did that in writing somewhere, and I will find it." Nobody moved. Gregory Sterling smiled and said, "Victoria, nobody in this room would ever—" "I didn't say this room." "I'm sorry." "I said if anyone in this room," Victoria said. "I didn't say only this room. I'm aware it might not be this room. I just wanted to watch the faces." And she watched the faces. Yatta. Marcus caught Noah at the loading dock at 4. "She's insane," he said. "Do you understand? She's insane. She just told 9 of the most powerful people in this state that she's watching their faces." "I know." "That is not a thing you do, Noah. That is not a thing you—" He stopped. "Wait. Why aren't you scared?" "Who says I'm not scared?" "You look weird." "I look weird." "You look like a guy who ate something," Marcus said. "What did you eat?" Noah reached into his jacket and took out a folded printout and held it up. "What's that?" "Work order log," Noah said. "Facilities vendor management. Every after-hours access to the executive floor for the last 14 months. Marcus's face went gray. "Where'd you get that?" Ma'am subpoenaed her own company. What? Outside counsel, Noah said. Turns out when you're the CEO, you can just ask, and they gotta give it to you. Nobody ever does it because it makes everybody hate you forever, but you can just ask. He unfolded the paper. Marcus, look at this. I don't want to look at that. Look at it. Marcus looked at it. And Noah watched a 59-year-old man with 14 months to a pension read one line on a piece of paper and go absolutely perfectly white. That's not possible, Marcus said. Yeah. Noah, that's not that name. That's not possible. February 11th, Noah said. April 3rd and the 12th. 3 after-hours accesses to the East Wing panel, all logged, all badged, all under the same employee number. He tapped the page. Marcus, look at the name. Marcus's hands were shaking. Daniel Ruiz, he said. You know him. Noah. Marcus, do you know him? And Marcus Doyle looked up from the paper with an expression Noah had never seen on his face in 2 years. Not fear, not anger. Something else, something that lived underneath both of those. Danny Ruiz worked this building for 19 years, he said. He was a tech, like you. He had a bad back and a laugh you could hear on 12. Okay, so where is he? I want to talk to. He's dead, Noah. The doc went silent. He died in November, Marcus said. Heart, in his sleep. I went to the funeral I was a pallbearer man. I helped put him in the ground in November. Noah looked at the paper in his hand, at 3 after-hours badge entries to the CEO's floor, in February, April, and May. Marcus, he said, and his voice came out strange and flat and very far away. Somebody's been using a dead man's badge. Marcus didn't say anything for a long time. He just stood there on the loading dock with his hand over his mouth like a man who'd walked into a room and found something on the floor. Say it again, he said finally. Somebody's been using Danny Ruiz's badge. No. Marcus. No, Noah, you don't get to just say that. Marcus's voice came apart in the middle. That's a man. That's not a number on a page, that's a man. He had a wife. He had his daughter's a nurse at Mercy. I see her she brought a casserole to my house. Noah. She brought a casserole to my house in November because my wife was sick and her dad had been dead 9 days and she brought us food. I know. Don't say, I know. Okay. You don't know. Marcus turned away, then turned back. 19 years. 19 years that man walked this building. He trained me on the freight elevator. He knew where every shutoff in this place was before there was a computer that knew. And somebody took his name. Somebody took a dead man's name out of a drawer and put it on a door at 2 in the morning. He stopped. Noah watched him understand it. That's why it's him, Marcus said quietly. Yeah, that's the whole reason it's him. He's dead. Dead man doesn't get asked. Dead man doesn't have an alibi because he doesn't need one. You pull that badge 9 days after the funeral, nobody deactivates it. Nobody notices. Nobody ever notices, because who in that building is checking whether a dead facilities tech swiped into an electrical panel? He looked up. Nobody. Nobody's checking. That's the answer. Nobody's ever checking on us. Marcus. That's what they think we are, man. Marcus's eyes were wet and furious. That's what this proves. They didn't even think to clean it up. They didn't hide it. They logged it. 3 times right there in the system with a name on it. You know why? Because nobody looks. Because nobody looks, Marcus said. Because we're the wallpaper. 19 years of a man's life, and they figured his name was just lying around. Noah folded the paper. 14 months, he said. What? Your pension. 14 months. Noah put the paper in his jacket. I'm not asking you for anything else. This is where you get out. You never saw this. You never read it. I stopped by and talked about the bills, and you told me to get off your dock. Marcus looked at him, and then Marcus Doyle laughed one syllable wet, disbelieving. You're really gonna do that, he said. You're really gonna stand there and give me the door. Take the door, Marcus. Screw the door. Marcus. Screw the door, Noah. Marcus wiped his face with the heel of his hand, hard angry. You think I can go home tonight? You think I sit down at my table with my wife and I eat knowing they used Danny? He shook his head. You don't understand me at all. You think I'm scared of losing the pension. You said, I'm scared of needing it, Marcus said. That's different. I'm 59 and my wife can't walk right, and if I lose this, I got nothing, and I know I got nothing, and that's what makes me a coward. Noah, it's not the money. It's that I counted. I did the math. Danny never did the math. Danny would have walked into that room in a heartbeat, and it would have cost him everything, and he'd have done it anyway. He put his hand out. Give me the paper. No. Give me the paper, Bennett. Marcus, I'm not asking you to protect me, Marcus said. I'm telling you what I can do that you can't. You can go behind a wall. Fine. Great. I can go into a server room, and I can pull an access history, and I can tell you not just that the badge swiped, but which reader and which door and how long the door stood open and whether anybody swiped in behind him. He jabbed a finger at Noah's chest. You got a name. I can get you a body. Somebody was standing at that door. That badge didn't walk itself. Noah stood there. You'd lose everything. Yeah, Marcus said. Probably. For a guy you knew 19 years who's already dead. For a guy I knew 19 years, Marcus said, who's already dead. And Noah gave him the paper. Ted. He told her that night at 8:20, standing in her office with the door open, and Victoria Ashford listened to the entire thing without saying one word. Then she said, Say the name again. Daniel Ruiz. When did he die? November 9th. And the swipes are? February 11th, April 3rd, and the 12th of this month, Noah said. Ma'am, those are your three. That's your elevator, that's your door lock, that's your... He stopped. That's me, Victoria said. Yes. She sat down. It was the first time he'd ever seen her sit down first. 11 months ago, she said slowly. November. That's when it started. Not February. November. Somebody stood at a funeral. Mr. Bennett. Somebody was probably at the funeral and then went back to the office and thought, well, there's an opportunity. Yeah. That's not a business rival, Victoria said. Do you understand? That's not a competitor. That's not a hedge fund. That's not. This is a person who went to a man's funeral and came back to his desk and filed a note. Ma'am, I want to be sick. Ma'am, I need you to hear the rest of it. There's more. There's the part I can't figure out, Noah said. And it's been eating me for 2 days, and I need to say it out loud to somebody smarter than me. Go. Why you? Victoria looked up. That's the wrong question, she said. No, ma'am, listen. If somebody wants you gone, there's 100 ways. Leak your numbers, buy your board, find a real scandal, make one up. Noah started pacing, which he never did. Instead, they spent 11 months breaking light switches. 11 months, 3 incidents, and what did they actually get? An investor said, you were emotional. 2 lawyers heard a call. A janitor saw you changing. He turned around. Ma'am, that's nothing. That's a bad week. That's not a coup. You don't take down a CEO with 3 embarrassing Tuesdays. Victoria went very still. Say that again. You don't take down a... No. She stood up. The part before that. What did you say? What did you actually say? I said they spent 11 months breaking light switches. They spent 11 months, Victoria repeated, establishing a pattern. Noah stopped. Oh God, she said. Ma'am, they're not incidents. Victoria's voice had gone strange and thin. They're not incidents, Noah, they're entries. That's what they are. Somebody's building a file. February C. EO trapped in elevator erratic under stress. April C. EO's office lock fails, privileged conversation. Compromised judgment questioned. The 12th CEO found in a compromising situation with a subordinate, and then 4 days later she promotes him $90,000 into her own office with no posting and no panel. Noah's stomach dropped through the floor. And now she's telling the executive committee she's watching their faces, Victoria said. And now she's subpoenaing her own company, And now she's retained outside counsel over a rumor. She looked at him. Do you know what that file says, Mr. Bennett? Ma'am, it says I'm paranoid, Victoria said. It says I'm unstable. It says I'm making impulsive personnel decisions and seeing conspiracies, and I need to be relieved of my duties for my own good and the good of 11,000 employees. She laughed, and it was a terrible sound. They didn't break the light switches to embarrass me. They broke them so that when I finally noticed my noticing would be the last piece of evidence. The office was quiet. That's a trap you can't get out of, Noah said slowly. No, because the more you fight, the more I prove it, Victoria said. Yes, that's the design. That's the whole beautiful thing about it. If I'm quiet, they win in 9 months. If I fight, they win now, and I hand them the ammunition myself. Then don't fight. I've been fighting, she said. I stood up in a room 3 days ago and told 9 people I was watching their faces. Do you understand what I did? I wrote the last page for them. I wrote it. Her hands were flat on the desk, and Noah could see them shaking. The board meets in 11 days, the 11th. Investor presentation, full floor, 200 people, 6 board members. And after the presentation, there's an executive session, and I have been so stupid. Ma'am. I have been so unbelievably stupid, ma'am. She stopped. Noah walked to the desk. He didn't sit. He put one hand on the back of the chair he never used and looked at her. Ma'am, he said, that's a good file. What? That's a good file, Noah said. It's a real good file. It's smart. It's patient. But there's a hole in it, and I want you to think about it for a second, because I've been thinking about it for 2 days, and I think it's the only thing we've got. What hole? Me, Noah said. Victoria stared at him. Every piece of that file, he said, runs through a thing breaking, elevator sensor, door lock, relay. That's the machine. That's how they do it. They don't touch you. They touch the building, and the building touches you. He tapped the desk. So who says whether a thing broke or got broken? A technician. A technician, Noah said. That's it. That's the whole hinge. Their entire 11 months only works if every single time some guy in a work shirt writes sensor fault on a piece of paper and goes home. And you. And I wrote relay corroded, recommend full circuit audit, Noah said, on the 12th. At 6:11 in the morning, before I ever met you, before I knew anything, because I'm a pain in the ass, and I always write the recommendation. It's in the vendor system. It's time-stamped. It's got my name on it. Victoria's mouth opened. They can say you're paranoid, Noah said. They can't say the relay was fine, ma'am, because there's a maintenance record from a man who had no reason to lie, filed 6 hours before he had any idea who you were. Oh, Victoria said. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the whole thing, she said. That's Noah. That's not a hole, that's a crack. That's a crack in a dam. And then her face changed. They know, she said. What? They know. She was already moving. Sterling knew on the 16th. You told him in a hallway, you told him about the dust and the tags. You told him, Noah, you told the man that his inspection records were fraudulent to his face 4 days after the 12th. Noah felt the floor tilt. He laughed, he said. He laughed and said, she found you. He wasn't laughing at you. No, Noah said. No, he was laughing because he'd already lost. He was laughing, Victoria said, because he'd already decided what to do about it. The next 8 days were the quietest of Noah Bennett's life, and that was how he knew. Nothing happened. Nobody called. Jessica didn't call. The woman with the folder didn't come back to the school. Rita said pickup was normal, and Noah said good and hung up and sat in his truck feeling like a man standing in a field watching weather come in from 40 miles out. He worked. He audited. He and Marcus tore that building apart from the inside like 2 termites with a grudge. Marcus in the server room pulling door open durations at 2 in the morning. Noah behind 900 feet of wall with a flashlight in his teeth. And on the 6th day, Noah found the thing that made him sit down on the floor of a mechanical room and not get up for a while. He called her at 11:40 at night. Ma'am? You found something. The stage rigging, Noah said. Silence. The auditorium on 4, he said, where the presentation is. They fly the LED wall and the lighting truss off 6 motorized hoists, chain motors. They lift the whole rig up over the stage and hold it there. Standard. Every venue in America's got 'em. And there's blue wire in the control box. Victoria didn't say anything at all. 12 gauge, Noah said. Same as the panel. Somebody ran a leg into the limit switch circuit on hoist 4. What does that mean? Ma'am, what does that mean, Noah? It means the safety that stops the motor from letting go, Noah said, can be told to think it already stopped. He heard her breathing. How much does that rig weigh? The truss and the wall together, 1,100 pounds. And it hangs over. Center stage, Noah said. Ma'am, it hangs directly over center stage. It hangs over the spot where you stand. The line was quiet for 11 full seconds. Then Victoria said in a voice Noah had never heard from her small flat. Almost curious. They're going to kill me. Ma'am? They're going to kill me. Ma'am, listen. No, I want to hold on. She actually laughed a short, broken thing. I want to be precise about this because I've spent 11 months being wrong about it. I thought this was about a board seat. I thought it was about a file. I thought it was Gregory being Gregory, and I was going to sit in a room and out-argue him, and it was going to be humiliating, and then it was going to be over, ma'am. And it's not a file at all, is it? The file's the cover. That's what the file is for. 11 months of writing down that I'm erratic and unstable, so that when 1,100 pounds of truss comes down on me, it reads as an accident in a building she was already too paranoid to trust. Victoria. She stopped. He'd said it. He heard himself say it. He didn't take it back. Don't go, he said. Would you boo? What? Don't go. Cancel it. Get sick. Get on a plane. Ma'am, you don't have to be in that room. That's the whole, there's no version of this where you standing under that thing is the smart play, so don't stand under it. If I cancel, Victoria said quietly, 1,100 pounds of truss doesn't fall, and the blue wire disappears in 9 hours, and there's nothing. There's no incident. There's no evidence. There's just a woman who canceled her own investor presentation 8 days after telling 9 executives she was watching their faces. She exhaled. And then they win Noah. They win clean. And I'm out in a month, and there's some other version of this in some other building, and Danny Ruiz's badge is still in somebody's drawer. Then bring the police. With what? With what, Noah? She said. A piece of blue wire. A theory from a building tech. Do you know what happens if I call the police on Gregory Sterling with a piece of wire? He walks out of that room in 90 minutes, and I'm in a psychiatric evaluation by Friday. That's not paranoia. That's the file. The file makes it impossible for me to be believed. That's what it's for. Noah stood in his kitchen at midnight and understood completely that she was right. Then I'm going to say the ugly part, he said. Say it. The only way anybody ever believes you, Noah said, is if that thing actually comes down. Victoria was quiet. And the only way it comes down, Noah said, is if you're standing under it. Yes, she said. Ma'am. Yes, Noah. That's not a plan. That's a ma'am, that's not a plan. That's a guy holding a match over a gas can and calling it a strategy. Then give me a better one, she said. And Noah Bennett stood in his kitchen for a long, long time. Okay, he said. Okay, I got one. You're not gonna like it. Tell me. You stand where they want you to stand, Noah said. And I'm gonna be 40 feet away, and I'm gonna be watching the one thing on that stage nobody's ever looked at in the history of that building. What? The chain, Noah said. It's a chain motor, ma'am. Before that rig lets go, the chain moves. Half an inch, maybe an inch. Nobody sees it because nobody's looking at it. They're looking at you. That's the whole point of a stage. He swallowed. But I'll see it. I'll see it about a second and a half before it goes. A second and a half. Yeah. Noah, that's enough, he said. Ma'am, that's plenty. That's twice what I need. You know how far I can move in a second and a half. That's not what I was going to say. Then say it. I was going to say, Victoria said, that a second and a half is not enough time for you to get out. Noah didn't answer. Is it? Ma'am. Is it, Noah? No, he said. The line was silent. No, Victoria said. Ma'am? No, absolutely not. I withdraw it. I withdraw the whole, I'll cancel, I'll take the loss. I'll be gone in a month. I don't care. You care. I don't care, Noah. Do you have any idea what you just... Her voice broke, actually broke all the way through. You have a daughter. You have a 7-year-old with asthma, and no mother, and nothing else in the world but you. And you just stood there and did the math, and offered me the second and a half like you were handing me a pen. Ma'am. And you didn't even hesitate. You didn't even hesitate. That's what I can't... Because I already did the math. He hadn't meant to shout. It came out of him like something breaking. Silence. I did the math 4 days ago. Noah said quieter, and his voice was shaking. Okay, I did it in my truck. I've done it every night since. You think I'm brave? I'm not brave, ma'am. I sat in a parking garage and I did math because that's what I do. I've been doing math since I was 27, and my wife walked out and left me with a car seat. Noah, and here's what the math says. He pressed the heel of his hand into his eye. If I walk away, if I go home tonight, and I keep my head down, and I let it happen, then 11 days from now, a woman dies under a light rig. And they win. And my daughter grows up with a father who had a chance to stop it and did the math, and she'll never know. She'll never know a single thing about it, and that's, ma'am, that's worse. Do you understand? That's the version where I'm still alive, and there's nothing left in me for her to have. He heard her crying. He'd never heard that before. Nobody had. So that's not a sacrifice, Noah said. That's not, don't make it a big thing. I'm not going up there to die. I'm going up there because I'm the only guy in that room who knows what a chain looks like when it's about to let go. And if I'm right, I'm fast, and if I'm wrong. If you're wrong, you're dead. If I'm wrong, Noah said, we're both dead, and at least somebody's finally going to look at that panel. Marcus called him on the 9th day at 6:15 in the morning, and Noah knew from the first syllable. I got him. Noah sat straight up on the couch. Say it. Ruiz's badge the 12th of this month, 4:31 a.m., Marcus said, and his voice was doing something strange. He sounded like he'd been up all night and gone through the other side. East wing panel door. Reader says it opened for 6 minutes and 19 seconds. That's not enough, Marcus. That's just there's a second swipe. Noah stopped breathing. 4:31 and 40 seconds, Marcus said. 9 seconds after Ruiz's badge. Same door. Somebody walked in behind him. Whose? Nobody's. Marcus. Nobody's, Noah. That's what I'm telling you. It's a visitor credential. Temporary. Issued that morning at 4:12 a.m. and voided at 6:40 a.m. 2.5 hours of life, and then it's gone. Marcus's breath was ragged. But here's the thing, man. Here's the thing about a temp credential. Somebody's got to issue it. A person has to sit at a terminal and say yes, and that terminal logs who? Marcus. You ready? Say it. It wasn't Sterling, Marcus said. The room went sideways. What? It wasn't Sterling, Noah. Sterling's badge was in Boston on the 11th and the 12th. He flew back on the 14th. It's clean. It's airtight. I checked it 4 times. The man was 400 miles away. That's not Marcus. That's not possible. The inspection tags, the retention purges, everything runs through his. Everything runs through his office, Marcus said. Not his hands. Noah. Not his hands. He's got 7 people in that office, and every one of them signs with his initials because that's how it works. That's how it's always worked. You think a COO's out here initialing electrical tags at 2 in the morning. Noah stood up. Marcus, who issued the credential? I want you to sit down. I'm standing. Noah, sit down. Who issued the credential, Marcus? And Marcus Doyle said a name. And Noah Bennett stood in his living room at 6:19 in the morning with the phone against his ear and did not move for 11 seconds, and then very slowly he sat down on the floor. No, he said. Yeah. No, Marcus. Yeah, Noah. That's not... His voice wasn't working. That's not... She, Marcus. She's been in my truck. I know. She's been in my truck. She brings me coffee. She... I know, Marcus said. I know, man. Say it again. Noah. Say it again. And Marcus said quietly, Claire Whitaker, Chief of Staff, Office of the CEO. Noah put his hand over his eyes. She sits 40 feet from Victoria, he said. Yeah. She's the woman with the headset. Yeah, Noah. She's the one who sent me up 3 flights of stairs on the 12th, Noah said. And something in his chest went cold and total and clear. Because the exec elevator needs a badge, and if I'd taken the elevator, I'd have gotten to that door 12 minutes earlier, and Victoria wouldn't have been changing yet. Silence on the line. Marcus, Noah said. She didn't send me up the stairs to humiliate me. No. She sent me up the stairs to time me. Noah sat on the floor of his living room for a long time after Marcus hung up. Then he got up and made coffee because his hands needed something, and he stood at the counter and watched it drip and thought about a paper cup. Claire Whitaker had put a paper cup in his hand on the 3rd day of March in the parking garage at 6:40 in the morning. He remembered because it was the first time anybody from upstairs had ever spoken to him like he was a person. She'd been walking to her car and she'd stopped and said, "You're the one who fixed the chiller, right?" And Noah had said, "Yeah." And she'd said, "Thank God my office was 79 degrees for a week," and then she'd handed him her coffee. Just handed it to him. Said she'd had 2 already, and it was going to kill her. He'd thought about that cup for a month. He'd thought about it the way a man thinks about the one nice thing that happened to him that year. Daddy. Noah turned around. Lily was in the doorway in her pajamas with her hair going in 9 directions. "You're up early," he said. "So are you." "Yeah." "Why are you making coffee like that?" "Like what?" "Like you're mad at it," Lily said. And Noah Bennett laughed one broken syllable and picked his daughter up, 41 pounds of her, and held her too tight for too long, and she let him because she was 7, and she was smart, and she knew when not to ask. Gush. He told Victoria at 7:50 in the morning in the parking garage in his truck because he wasn't going to say that name inside that building. She'd come down herself. He'd texted garage level 3 now, and she'd come down in a $5,000 coat and gotten into a truck with a cracked dash and a car seat in the back and said, "What?" Noah told her. He got about 11 words in before her face changed. "Stop," she said. "Ma'am, stop talking." The temp credential was issued at 4:12 in the morning on the 12th from a terminal in the "Stop talking, Noah." He stopped. Victoria Ashford sat in the passenger seat of his truck and looked straight ahead through the windshield at a concrete wall, and Noah watched her go somewhere very far away. "Claire Whitaker," she said, "has worked for me for 6 years. I know. She was my father's assistant before she was mine. She was in the room when he told me he was retiring. She was in the room when the first board tried to remove me. She was 28 years old, and she stood in the back of that room, and I looked at her and she didn't look away, and that's the only reason I got through it. Do you understand? That's the only reason." "Ma'am, she knows my mother's name," Victoria said. "Nobody knows my mother's name. There's no article. There's no Wikipedia entry. My mother left when I was 6, and my father erased her from the planet, and Claire knows her name because I told her at 2 in the morning in a hotel in Frankfurt when I was 30 hours into a deal, and I couldn't stop shaking." Noah said nothing. "She's the only person on earth who's ever seen me cry." "Ma'am, until you," Victoria said, 9 days ago, on a phone. So that's 2. That's the whole list. That's the entire list of people who have ever seen it, and one of them is you, and one of them is her, and you're telling me—" She stopped. Her hands were flat on her knees. "You're telling me she's been standing 40 feet from my door for 11 months writing down that I'm losing my mind?" "Yes, ma'am." "You're sure?" "No," Noah said. Victoria turned her head. "I'm not sure," Noah said. "I told you I'd never say sure when I wasn't. So no, I'm not sure. The terminal log says her credential issued a temporary badge at 4:12 a.m. on the 12th. That's all it says. It doesn't say she was sitting at it. Somebody could have used her login. Somebody could have used her login," Victoria repeated. "Yes. That's what you'd say if you wanted to give me a door." Noah looked out the windshield. "Yeah," he said. "That's what I'd say. Do you believe it?" "No, ma'am." "Why not?" "Because of the stairs," Noah said. And Victoria closed her eyes. "She sent me up the stairs on the 12th, Noah said. 3 flights in boots with a 40-pound box. That's 12 minutes. And I've been trying to make it innocent for 2 hours, ma'am. I've been trying real hard because she gave me a cup of coffee once, and I'm not. I don't get a lot of those." His voice went rough. "But I can't make it innocent. Because if I'd taken that elevator, I'd have knocked on your door at 5:28, and you'd have been at your desk, and nothing would have happened at all. The only way I walk in on you is if somebody puts 12 minutes on me." The truck was quiet. "She's the one who told me to take the service car," he said. "She's the one who said it only goes to 38. She knew I'd walk." "She knew you'd walk," Victoria said, "because she'd read your file." "Moo." "What?" "Chief of Staff," Victoria said dully. "She reads everything. She'd have read your evaluations. She'd have read—" Her mouth twisted. "Does other people's work and doesn't mention it. That's in your file, Noah. That's the sentence. That's the sentence that told her you'd take the stairs instead of arguing and check every door instead of leaving and open the last one instead of going home." Noah felt sick. "She didn't just pick a poor guy," he said. "No. She picked me. She picked the exact man," Victoria said, "who would do the one thing that made it work. And then she picked the exact man who'd never tell anyone about it afterward, which is why the rumor had to be manufactured, because you wouldn't say a word she needed you to be silent so that someone else could say it, and it'd sound true precisely because you never denied it." Noah put his head back against the seat. "That's the smartest thing I ever heard," he said. "Yes, ma'am, that's the smartest thing I ever heard." "She learned it from my father," Victoria said, and her voice finally came apart. "She learned it from my father, Noah. She used to take his notes." Noah found Gregory Sterling at 11:15 that morning, alone in a hallway on 39, and did the single most reckless thing he had ever done in his life. "Mr. Sterling!" Sterling turned and smiled that warm, awful, friendly smile. "Mr. Bennett, how's the new job? I need 90 seconds. I'm afraid I'm—" "Somebody's going to kill Victoria Ashford on the 11th, Noah said, "and you're going to prison for it." Sterling's smile did not move, not 1 millimeter, but something behind his eyes did. "Come with me," he said. The office door closed. Sterling didn't sit either. He stood behind his desk with his fingertips on it, and for the first time, Noah saw the actual man 50 years old, tired, and very, very fast. "Say it again." "Every piece of it goes through your office," Noah said. "The inspection tags, the retention purges on the camera drives, the vendor management sign-offs, 11 months of fraudulent paperwork with your initials on every single page. My initials are on 9,000 pages a year. I know. Do you know how initials work in a company this size, Mr. Bennett? I have 7 people who sign with your initials. I know. That's the point." Noah leaned forward. "Sir, that's the design. Somebody built 11 months of this so that when it's over and somebody finally goes looking, there's one name at the bottom of every page and it's yours. Sterling was silent. Sterling was. You went to Boston on the 10th, Noah said. You were 400 miles away on the 12th. That's clean. That's the cleanest alibi in this building. He watched Sterling's face. You want to know how I know? Because Marcus checked it 4 times to prove you did it. 4 times. And every time it came back clean, and every time he thought he'd made a mistake. That's a compliment to my calendar. That's not luck, sir. No, Sterling said quietly. No, it isn't. He sat down. He sat down like a man whose legs had been taken out from under him, and Noah watched a chief operating officer of an $11 billion company put both hands over his face. Who scheduled Boston? Noah said. Sterling didn't answer. Sir, who scheduled Boston? The office of the CEO, Sterling said into his hands. Chief of Staff coordinates all executive travel. Say the name. Don't. Say the name. Gregory Sterling lowered his hands. Claire, he said. And then after a moment, with something that was almost a laugh. I told her I didn't want to go. I said the Boston meeting was a waste of a week. She said... He stopped. What'd she say? She said, Greg, you need to be somewhere else for a while. Things are strange around here. Sterling's voice was very steady and very hollow. She said it like she was doing me a favor. The office was quiet for a long time. You've hated her, Noah said. Victoria, haven't you? Sterling looked up. You went after me in a hallway, Noah said. You told me to write a statement. You put your hand on my shoulder and told me to think about how it had read in a deposition. You did that. Yes? Why? Because I ran this company for 11 years, Sterling said. And then a 25-year-old walked into my building and took it, and she was better at it than me, and I have spent 4 years being small about that. He said it flatly. He didn't decorate it. Yes, Mr. Bennett, I wanted her out. I wanted her out badly enough to lean on a maintenance contractor in a hallway, which is the most contemptible thing I've ever done, and I have thought about it every day since. Did you? No, Sterling said. God, no. Do you understand what you're asking me? I wanted her humiliated. I wanted a board vote. I wanted her to sit across a table from me and know I'd won. His voice cracked right down the middle. I didn't want her dead. I've known that girl since she was 19 years old. I taught her to read a term sheet. He stopped. Noah waited. Claire came to me in January, Sterling said quietly. Noah went very still. She came into this office and closed the door and said she was worried, said Victoria wasn't sleeping, said she'd been erratic in a meeting with council, said, and I remember this exactly, she said, Greg, someone's going to have to be the adult, and I'm afraid it's going to have to be you. He looked at his own hands. And I felt good. Do you understand? I felt chosen. She fed me exactly what I was starving for, and I ate it out of her hand for 11 months. She was building you, Noah said. She was building me. Every bad thing you did, she suggested, Sterling said, in the softest possible way, not once as an instruction, always as a worry, always as concern. Greg, you should probably know that HR is nervous. Greg, someone should really document this. He laughed, and it was ugly. The hallway. Mr. Bennett, the hallway, the thing I said to you about your ex-wife's deposition, that phrasing wasn't mine. She said it to me 2 days earlier. She said, imagine how that reads in a deposition. And I picked it up and carried it down a hallway and put it on a man with a 7-year-old. Noah's stomach turned over. Sir, he said. Did anybody go to my daughter's school? Sterling looked up sharply. What? A woman with a folder, at pickup, talking about family services and my ex-wife. I don't... Sterling stood up. Mr. Bennett, I swear on my life. I believe you, Noah said. That's what scares me. He went to Victoria that night. He's not it, Noah said. I know. He's a fall guy. He's been eating out of her hand since January. She fed him every single thing he did. Noah, I know, Victoria said. I've known for 6 hours. I pulled Claire's calendar. She turned her laptop around. 11 months. Every one of Sterling's worst decisions is preceded within 72 hours by a one-on-one with my chief of staff. Every single one. There's not a single exception. Noah stared at the screen. She was aiming him, he said. She was aiming him at me, Victoria said, so that when I go under a light trust there's a man with motive and 11 months of fraudulent paperwork with his initials on it, and a hallway conversation with a witness where he tried to buy a statement about the CEO's sex life. And a dead man's badge. And a dead man's badge, Victoria said, which was, I'm sure, in a drawer in facilities vendor management, which reports to Sterling. Sterling. Noah sat down in the chair he never used. Ma'am, he said, I need to ask you something, and I need you to actually answer it. Go. Why? Victoria's face closed. Why? Noah said again. 6 years. Frankfurt, your mother's name. She stood in the back of a room when you were 25 and didn't look away. Why? Victoria was quiet a long time. Because I never gave her anything, she said. Ma'am, I never gave her anything, Noah. She said it very simply, and that was what made it terrible. 6 years. She ran my life. She ran my entire life. There is not a day in 6 years that woman didn't know where I was standing. And in 6 years, I never once promoted her. Never once put her on the executive committee. Never once put her name on anything. She swallowed. Because she was useful where she was. Because I needed her at that desk. Because it never occurred to me. I never thought about it. Not once. I've thought about it more in the last 6 hours than in 6 years. That's not a reason to kill somebody. No, Victoria said. It isn't. So, there's money, she said. Obviously there's money. I found it this afternoon, or my counsel did. There's a consortium that's been quietly accumulating since March, and their entire thesis only works if this company trades at a discount to a leadership crisis. She shrugged, and it was the emptiest gesture Noah had ever seen. So there's a reason. There's a business reason. There's a number. If it goes the way it's built to go, Claire Whitaker's the loyal chief of staff who survived the tragedy and steadied the ship sitting on a stake that quadruples. But that's not it. Victoria looked at him. That's not it, Noah said. Ma'am, I fix things for a living, and I'll tell you something. Nothing ever breaks for one reason. It breaks 'cause it's been carrying more than it was built for longer than anybody looked. Victoria's eyes filled. Don't, she said. Ma'am, don't you dare make me feel sorry for her. I'm not, Noah said. I'm telling you why you didn't see it. You didn't see it 'cause she's the wall, ma'am. Nobody looks at the wall. And she's been standing there for 6 years holding up your whole life, and you never once looked behind it, and neither did anybody else. And one day the thing behind the wall was arcing. Victoria put her hand over her mouth. That's not an excuse, Noah said. There's no excuse. She put a woman with a folder 40 feet from my kid. I'm gonna help put her in a cage, ma'am, and I'm gonna sleep fine. But I know what it is to be the wall, Noah said. That's all. That's the whole thing I'm saying. They didn't go to the police. They fought about it for 4 hours, and then Victoria's outside counsel, a small, terrifying woman named Adaora Keene, who had said maybe 9 words in her life, closed a folder and said, You have a piece of wire. You have a piece of wire, a maintenance record, and a badge log, Keene said. You have no statement, no communication, no financial link that isn't 3 shells deep, and no act. She has not done anything, Ms. Ashford. Issuing a temporary credential is not a crime. Scheduling a business trip is not a crime. Running blue wire is not a crime. The wire isn't even connected to anything yet. It's in the limit circuit. It's a leg, Keene said. It's a leg with a bare end. Mr. Bennett, correct me. Noah swallowed. It's not landed. It's not landed. Somebody's got to come back and land it. When? Morning of. Has to be. You land that and the rig's hot, and if some kid on the AV crew hits the wrong button 8 hours early, the whole thing goes off in an empty room. He rubbed his face. It's a one-shot. They land it that morning and they trigger it that afternoon. Keene looked at Victoria. Then you have nothing until the morning of the 11th, she said, and everything at 6 a.m. And if we go now? If you go now, Keene said, she voids the credential trail, the wire disappears, and you are a woman who called the FBI on her assistant. That's not a case. That's a diagnosis. Victoria closed her eyes. So I stand under it, she said. You stand near it, Keene said. There's a difference, and the difference is the entire strategy, and I want it in writing that I advised against every part of this. The morning of the 11th, Noah got to the building at 4:40 a.m., and Claire Whitaker was standing at the loading dock with 2 cups of coffee. He almost threw up. There he is, she said, and smiled and held one out. I heard you've been living here. Noah took the cup. He took it, because if he didn't take it, she'd know. And if she knew, the wire went in the trash, and Danny Ruiz's name stayed in a drawer forever. And so Noah Bennett took a cup of coffee from the woman who had put a stranger at his daughter's school and said, Thanks. You look terrible. Long month. Tell me about it. She sipped. She was so easy. That was the thing that broke him. She was warm and rumpled and human, and she leaned on the wall next to him like they were 2 people at the end of a shift. You know she's been impossible since your promotion. She's Noah, don't repeat this. Okay. She's not okay. Claire's face did something perfect. Concern. Real textured concern. I'm scared for her. I'm scared of what's happening to her. She stood up in front of the exec committee last week and said she was watching their faces. Do you know what that sounds like from the outside? Yeah, Noah said. You do. I do, Noah said. It sounds like she's paranoid. Claire looked at him for exactly 1 second too long. Yes, she said softly. That's exactly what it sounds like, and Noah understood in that second that she was recruiting him. Right there. On a loading dock at 4:40 in the morning with a cup of coffee. She was recruiting him the way she'd recruited Sterling, in the softest possible way, as a worry, never as an instruction. She's been good to me, Noah said. She has. Gave my kid insurance. I know. Claire's voice went gentle. Noah, can I say something? And I want you to know, it's because I like you. She turned to face him. When this ends, and it's going to end, people are going to look at that promotion. $94,000, 4 days after you were alone with her in her office. And they're going to ask you what happened up there. Noah's hands were steady. He didn't know how. And what should I say? He asked. The truth, Claire Whitaker said warmly. Whatever it is. I'd just hate for you to be the last person defending her when nobody else is. She squeezed his arm. And she walked away. Noah stood on the dock with a cup of coffee and shook so hard he had to put it down. At 5:20 a.m. his phone buzzed. Dispatch reassigned. B2 mechanical, chiller fault, all day. Noah stared at it. He called dispatch. Nobody picked up. He called again. He called Marcus. Marcus. I see it. Who put that in? Work orders got no requester, Marcus said. Same as the 12th. There's no name on it. Noah, it's a ghost order. Marcus. I need to be on 4 at 3 o'clock. I know. If I'm in a basement. I know Noah. Noah put his hand against the wall. She's moving me, he said. Yeah. She's moving me off the floor because I'm the only guy in that room who knows what a chain looks like. Noah, listen to me. Marcus's voice dropped. You show up on 4 this afternoon after being pulled to B2, and there's a ghost work order sitting in that system with no requester that says you were supposed to be in a basement. You understand what that is. That's the last page. That's the page that says the tech ignored his assignment and ran onto a stage and grabbed the CEO. I don't care. Noah. Marcus, I don't care. You should, Marcus shouted. Because if that thing comes down and you're standing there, you're not the hero, man. You're the guy who was supposed to be in the basement." Noah stood in a hallway at 5:26 in the morning and understood finally all the way down exactly how good she was. Then he said, "Marcus, can you get me a real one?" "A real what?" "A real work order," Noah said. "Signed, time-stamped, requester's name on it. Something that puts me on 4 at 3 o'clock for a legitimate reason that any human being on earth would believe." Silence. "Marcus." "Yeah." "Can you get me one?" "Yeah," Marcus said slowly. "Yeah, I can get you one. But Noah, it's got to be requested by somebody with authority over the venue, and there's exactly one person in this building who has that. And if she signs it, her name's on the page. Forever. Right next to yours." Noah closed his eyes. "Ask her," he said. Victoria signed it at 5:51 a.m. She signed a work order requesting that Executive Technical Specialist N. Bennett be present in Auditorium 4 for the duration of the investor presentation for pre-flight verification of overhead rigging, and she signed it with her own name, and Adayora Keene stood behind her and said, "You understand this is a confession of foreknowledge?" "Yes." "You understand that if nothing happens today, this document ends your career?" "Yes." "You understand that if something does happen today, then it'll be the only piece of paper in this building that told the truth before it happened," Victoria said and clicked send. At 5:58 a.m., Noah went behind the wall in Auditorium 4 for the last time. The blue wire was landed. He knelt there with a flashlight in his teeth and looked at a bare copper end that had been bare for 9 days and was now seated into the limit switch terminal on hoist 4. Torqued down neat as a surgery, and he felt the whole thing go real in his chest. Not a theory, not a piece of insulation, not a story he'd been telling himself in a truck at midnight. Somebody had come back at 5 in the morning and finished it. He called Marcus. "Panel door on 4. Last 4 hours. Tell me." 30 seconds. 5:04 a.m. Marcus said, and his voice was shaking. "Ruiz's badge. 6 minutes 2 seconds. Second swipe. 5:04 and 38 seconds. Temp credential. Issued this morning at 4:47. Issued by Noah. Issued by Marcus. Claire Whitaker," Marcus said. "Chief of Staff, Office of the CEO." Noah sat down on the floor of the mechanical space behind the auditorium wall with the flashlight in his lap. "She landed it herself," he said. "Yeah. She landed it herself, Marcus. She didn't send anybody. She got on her knees on a concrete floor at 5 in the morning in a $2,000 suit, and she torqued down a wire that's gonna drop 1,100 pounds on a woman she's known for 6 years. Yeah. Why would she do it herself? Because, Marcus said quietly, there's nobody else she trusts either. At 2:40 that afternoon, there were 211 people in Auditorium 4. Noah stood at stage left with a laminated work order in his back pocket and a radio he didn't need, and did not take his eyes off a chain. Not off Victoria, not off the room, not off Claire Whitaker, who was standing at the back of the house with a tablet exactly where a chief of staff stands, exactly where she'd stood 200 times. The chain. Hoist 4. Center stage. A gray length of steel, a 1/4 inch thick, disappearing up into the dark. And Noah Bennett stared at it the way a man stares at the surface of water where his kid went under. Victoria walked out at 2:47 to applause. She was flawless. That was the thing that undid him. She was flawless. 41 slides. $11 billion. 6 board members in the second row. And a woman who'd cried on a phone at midnight 9 days ago, standing in a spotlight, talking about margin compression like she'd slept 9 hours. At 3:06, she was 14 minutes in. At 3:09, Noah's eyes were burning, and he did not blink. At 3:11, Claire Whitaker looked down at her tablet, and the chain moved. 1/2 inch. Noah was already running. He heard somewhere behind him a sound come out of the room, the specific animal sound 200 people make when a man in a work shirt sprints onto a stage, and he did not hear it. Not really, because there was nothing in the world but 11 feet of floor and a woman turning toward him with her mouth opening and a sound above them like a zipper being pulled by God. He hit her at the waist. He did not grab her. There was no time to grab. He hit her the way you hit a door that's swollen shut all of him, everything, and they went sideways off the front of the stage in a tangle, and the world went white. 1,100 pounds of truss and LED wall came down on center stage at 41 feet per second. It made a sound like the building had been hit by a car. And then there was silence. Actual silence. 211 people and not one sound. Noah was on the floor with his arm under Victoria Ashford's head, and something wet in his eyes, and a piece of metal through his left thigh that he had not noticed yet, and would not notice for another 90 seconds. Victoria's face was 2 inches from his. She was breathing. "You're okay," Noah said. He couldn't hear his own voice. "Ma'am. Hey. Hey. You're okay." And Victoria Ashford, flat on her back, on a floor in front of 6 board members and 211 employees, and a woman at the back of the room holding a tablet, reached up with a hand that was shaking uncontrollably and put it flat against Noah Bennett's chest and said, "Noah." "Yeah. Your leg." Noah looked down. That was a mistake. There was a piece of aluminum truss about the size of a dinner knife standing straight up out of his thigh, and the second he saw it, his whole body understood what had happened to it, and the pain arrived all at once like a train coming into a station. "Oh," he said. "Don't move." "Ma'am, don't move Noah. I gotta get up. You have a piece of metal in your leg. Ma'am, listen to me." He grabbed her wrist. His hand was slick, and he didn't know with what. "Listen, right now. There's a woman at the back of this room, and she's got about 90 seconds before she starts fixing this, and if she gets to a terminal..." Victoria's head snapped up, and 211 people watched the CEO of Ashford Technologies come up off the floor of her own auditorium with blood on her sleeve and her hair down and a voice that went to the back wall like a rifle shot. "Nobody leaves this room." Nobody left the room. "Marcus Doyle is in the security office. Marcus, if you can hear me on that radio, lock every terminal on the executive floor right now. Everyone. Nobody logs in. Nobody logs out." The radio on Noah's hip crackled, and a voice came through it that sounded like a man who had been waiting 19 years to say something. "Already done. Ada ora. Here." Keene was already standing, already walking down the center aisle with a folder under her arm, like a woman arriving at a meeting she'd scheduled months ago. "Call them." "Called them at 3:06, Keene said. "They're in the lobby." Victoria turned around slowly. And at the back of the auditorium, standing exactly where a chief of staff stands, Claire Whitaker was holding a tablet against her chest with both arms, and she was looking at Victoria, and her face was doing something no one in that room would ever be able to describe afterward. She wasn't running. That was the thing Noah remembered. 20 years later, that was the thing. She wasn't running. She was just standing there in the dark at the back of the house, with her arms crossed over a tablet, like a woman holding a schoolbook, and Noah bleeding on the floor of a stage. Understood that she had never once in 11 months considered the possibility of standing in a room where everyone was looking at her. "Claire," Victoria said. The whole room turned. "Come down here." And Claire Whitaker walked down the center aisle of Auditorium 4 in front of 211 people, and she did it with her chin up, and Noah watched her do the only thing left she was good at, which was to be exactly the person the room needed her to be. "Victoria." Her voice broke perfectly. "Oh my God. Are you somebody? Get a doctor. Stop." "Victoria, you're bleeding." "Stop." Claire stopped. They stood 4 feet apart. 6 board members watched from the second row. Nobody breathed. "At 4:47 this morning," Victoria said, "you issued a temporary badge credential from your terminal. At 5:04 a.m., that credential entered the mechanical panel behind this stage 9 seconds after a badge belonging to Daniel Ruiz, who has been dead since November. You were behind that wall for 6 minutes and 2 seconds, and when you came out, hoist 4 had a wire in it that made the safety think it had already stopped." Silence. "I know you were on your knees," Victoria said. "I know because there's a white mark in the dust, and it's the shape of a forearm, and it's your size, Claire, and a man who fixes things for a living looked at it at 5:58 this morning and told me exactly what it was." Claire's face did not change. "That's insane," she said gently. "Victoria, listen to yourself." And there it was. Noah on the floor actually laughed a wet, cracked, unbelieving sound, because there it was. Even now, 1,100 pounds of steel in a crater 11 feet away, and a man bleeding out on the boards, and she reached for it anyway, because it was the only tool she had ever needed, and it had never failed her once in 6 years. Listen to yourself. "You hear that?" Noah said. His voice was going. "Ma'am, you hear it? She's still doing it. She's doing it right now. I know. She's got a body count, and she's still. I know Noah." And Victoria Ashford took one step forward and said the only sentence that mattered. "Claire, look at the floor." Claire didn't. "Look at the floor." And Claire Whitaker looked at the floor at 1,100 pounds of truss and LED wall lying in a crater exactly where Victoria Ashford had been standing 4 minutes earlier, and something happened to her face that Noah would think about for the rest of his life. It wasn't guilt. It was arithmetic. She was still doing math. Standing there in front of the whole company with the wreckage of her 11 months in front of her, Claire Whitaker was recalculating. And Noah watched her run every remaining number, and watched her get to the bottom of the column, and watched her find nothing there. And then very quietly, she said, "You never once said my name." The room went absolutely still. "What?" Victoria said. "In 6 years." Claire's voice was conversational, almost curious. "Every article, every profile, every interview, 41 earnings calls. You thanked the board. You thanked your father. You thanked a vendor once. Do you remember that? A vendor." She tilted her head. "You never said my name. Not once. I built your entire life with my hands, and there is not a single document on this earth that says I was ever in the room." Victoria's mouth opened. Nothing came out. "There is now," Claire said. And Adayora Keene said quietly, "Ms. Whitaker, I'd advise you to stop talking." "Why?" Claire said and smiled at her, and Noah realized she was crying and had no idea. "That's the whole point. That's the entire point. Nobody was ever going to write it down." The doors at the back of the auditorium opened, and Claire Whitaker turned around and looked at 4 men coming down the aisle and put her tablet on a chair very carefully, the way she'd put things down for 6 years, precisely in the correct place, and she did not resist at all. She just said, as they took her arm, "Victoria, the Frankfurt thing, your mother's name." Victoria went white. "I never told anyone," Claire said. And she let them walk her out. Noah lost consciousness in the ambulance. He came back up in a hallway with fluorescent lights going by overhead, and a hand in his, and a voice saying his name, and he turned his head, and it was her hair, down blood on her sleeve, a $5,000 blazer, with the shoulder torn out of it, running alongside a gurney in a hospital corridor. "Ma'am? Don't talk. Lily. Rita has her. Rita has her. She's fine. She's at Rita's. She doesn't know anything. Don't let her see me like this. Noah." "Ma'am." He got a fistful of her sleeve. He didn't have much left. "Ma'am, listen. Don't let her see me like this. She's seen enough hallways. Please." "Okay. Promise." "I promise," Victoria said. "I promise. Noah. Noah, look at me." But the ceiling was going away. 91 minutes of surgery. The femoral artery was 3/4 of an inch from where the truss went in, and every surgeon who looked at the scan afterward said the same sentence in the same tone, which was that Noah Bennett was the luckiest man in the state of New York. Noah, when he was awake enough to hear it, said, "That's not luck, that's geometry." He woke up at 11 the next morning. Victoria was in the chair. She was in the same clothes, blood on the sleeve. $11 billion, 41 floors, and she was asleep sitting up in a hospital chair in a torn blazer with her shoes off. Noah looked at her for a long time. Then he said, Ma'am? She came awake like a woman coming out of water. You're awake. Have you been here all night? No. Ma'am. Yes, Victoria said. Obviously yes. Where else would I be? Your company My company can wait 11 hours. She said, for the first time in 4 years, and it turns out the answer is that nothing happened. Nothing happened at all. The building's still there. She laughed, and it cracked in the middle, and she pressed her hand over her mouth. God, Noah, do you know what I found out yesterday? Nothing happens. You just leave, and nothing happens. The door opened, and 41 pounds of Lily Bennett came through it at a dead run. Daddy. Hey, Bug, easy. She hit the bed anyway. Of course she did. Rita Kowalski stood in the doorway with her hands over her mouth, and Lily climbed halfway up her father with her whole body and put her face in his neck. And Noah Bennett, who had not cried at his father's funeral, went completely to pieces in a hospital bed in front of a billionaire. You promised? Lily sobbed. I know. You promised you'd always... I know, baby, I know. Rita said a thing fell. A thing fell, Noah said into her hair. Yeah, a thing fell. Did you fix it? And Noah, with his daughter's fist in his hospital gown and 11 staples in his leg, looked over her small, shaking shoulder at the woman in the chair. No, he said. This one you can't fix, Bug. This one you just take out and show people. Lily lifted her head. Her face was a wreck. Show who? Everybody, Noah said. Turns out the answer's everybody. And then Lily Bennett turned around and saw the strange woman in the chair with blood on her sleeve and did what 7-year-olds do, which is exactly the thing no adult in the world would have the nerve to do. She looked at her for a second. Then she said, Are you the lady my dad saved? Victoria Ashford opened her mouth, and nothing came out. Nothing at all. The woman who had faced down a board at 25 who had walked into a room of 9 executives and told them she was watching their faces sat in a plastic chair in a hospital room and could not produce a single word. Yes, she finally said. Lily considered this with enormous seriousness. Are you okay? She asked. And Victoria put both hands over her face and made a sound like a woman breaking open, and Noah lay back on the pillow and closed his eyes and thought, there it is. That's the whole family. That's the one thing we do. The rest of it took 14 months and almost none of it was dramatic. That's the part nobody tells you. Claire Whitaker never stood in a courtroom and made a speech. She never confessed on a witness stand. She sat at a defense table in gray taking notes because she could not stop being the most prepared person in any room she entered, and it was the most terrible thing Noah had ever seen. It came apart on paperwork. It always does. It came apart on a badge log and a terminal timestamp and a work order signed at 5:51 in the morning by a woman who knew what was going to happen before it happened. It came apart on 11 months of inspection tags with the wrong initials. It came apart on a piece of blue 12-gauge wire in an evidence bag and on a corroded relay that had sat on Noah Bennett's coffee table for 9 days like a dead bird. And it came apart mostly on a 59-year-old security supervisor with 14 months to a pension who sat in a federal deposition for 6 hours and answered every single question. They fired Marcus Doyle on a Thursday for unauthorized access to retention systems. Victoria rehired him on the same Thursday 40 minutes later as Director of Physical Security Integrity, a job that did not exist until she made it exist with his pension intact, and a raise he tried 3 times to refuse. I don't want charity, Marcus said. It's not charity. Ms. Ashford. Marcus, Victoria said. You went into a server room at 2 in the morning for a man who's been dead since November. That's not a favor I'm returning. That's a job description. You're the only person in 11,000 who's ever done it. Marcus stood in her office for a long time. Then he said, The chair goes. What? That chair. He pointed at it. The one Bennett won't sit in. Get rid of it. Get a table. Get a table with 4 chairs in this office and make people sit down at it, because I've been in this building 11 years, and I've never once been asked to sit down in it, and that's how the whole thing happened." Victoria Ashford looked at the chair for a long moment. The table went in that Friday. Gregory Sterling resigned in March. He didn't have to. Nothing he'd done was chargeable, and Keene said so flatly, and the board, which had spent 11 months being fed a file, would have kept him. He came to Victoria's office on a Tuesday and put an envelope on her new table and sat down at it. "You don't have to do this," Victoria said. "I do." "Greg, she played me like a fiddle," Sterling said. "And the reason she could is that I was already the instrument. That's the part I can't get around, Victoria. She didn't make me hate you. She just found it." He looked at his hands. "I put my hand on that boy's shoulder in a hallway and told him to think about how it'd read in a deposition. He's got a 7-year-old. "I know. He's got a 7-year-old, and I did that, and nobody made me." Victoria didn't argue with him. That was the thing Noah admired about her most at the end. She didn't reach for the easy mercy. She let a man mean what he said. "Where will you go?" "I have no idea," Sterling said. "It's the first time in 31 years I haven't known." He stood up and paused at the door. "Victoria, your father was a hard man, and he taught me everything I know, and I want you to hear this from somebody who was there for all of it." "Greg, you're better at this than he ever was," Sterling said. "I've known it since you were 25. That's the whole reason I couldn't stand you." And he left. Noah's leg never came all the way back. That's true, and it matters, and any story that told you otherwise would be lying to you. He walks with something in his gait that shows up at the end of a long day, and on cold mornings, he stands at the bottom of a staircase for a second longer than he used to, and he has told exactly one person in his life that it hurts, and that person was his daughter, and only because she asked directly. He went back to work in 11 weeks. Not upstairs. That was the thing that made the whole company crazy for about a year. Victoria Ashford offered him a vice presidency in writing twice, and Noah Bennett turned it down twice. "I don't understand you," she said. "I know." "Noah, it's $400,000. "Ma'am, what would I do?" "You'd—" Victoria stopped. "Yeah," Noah said. "See, that's the problem. I've been trying to answer that for a month and I can't. I'd sit in a room and people would bring me paper and I'd initial it, and then in 11 years I'd be a guy whose initials were on 9,000 pages he never read, and ma'am, we know how that story ends." Victoria sat back. "That's the most annoying thing you've ever said." "Yeah. It's also completely correct." "Yeah. So instead, he built the other thing. It took 2 years, and it has a boring name. Facilities Verification. And what it actually is 14 technicians who answer to nobody in the building, except the CEO, whose entire job is to go behind walls and write down what's actually there and sign it with their own names. Not initials, names. There's a rule about it now. It's in the handbook. Noah wrote it himself in his own words, and the general counsel tried to clean up the grammar, and Victoria told her not to touch a syllable. It says, if you signed it, you saw it. If you didn't see it, don't sign it. Nobody in this company is furniture. And in the lobby of that building next to the elevators, where 11,000 people walk past it every single morning, there's a small brass plate that Victoria Ashford paid for out of her own pocket and did not tell the communications department about until it was already installed. It says, Daniel Ruiz, 1961 to 2024. 19 years. He knew where every shutoff in this building was. Marcus Doyle cried when he saw it. In the lobby. In front of everybody. He didn't care. Four years later, on a Tuesday in October, Noah Bennett was standing at a kitchen counter at 6:20 in the evening, arguing with an 11-year-old about long division. It's wrong. It's not wrong, Bug, you just did it in a weird order. Victoria said it was wrong. Victoria's an engineer's daughter. She's got opinions. I can hear you, Victoria said from the table. She was there most Tuesdays. It had happened the way real things happen, which is slowly and without an announcement. A dinner, then two. Then a woman with a $200 haircut, sitting cross-legged on a floor at 9 o'clock at night, helping a fourth grader build a volcano out of a soda bottle, and swearing under her breath at the baking soda. There was no proposal on a mountain. There was no helicopter. There was a Tuesday. There was one night, a moment when Lily fell asleep on the couch between them during a movie. Neither of them was watching, and Noah looked over the top of his daughter's head, and Victoria Ashford was already looking back, and neither of them said one word about it for 4 more months. And then there was the night, Lily 12 by then, and Merciless looked up from her homework and said, "Are you guys ever going to talk about it, or is this just going to be forever?" And two extremely capable adults sat in a kitchen and could not speak. "You're both so dumb," Lily said, and went to her room. She asked him about it once. Years later, she was 17 and they were in a truck, a different truck, one that started on the first try though. Noah had never quite gotten over the miracle of that, and she asked him the question the way kids finally do sideways out the window. "Dad, the thing that fell." "Yeah." "When you ran." She didn't look at him. "Did you know you'd make it?" And Noah Bennett drove for a while. "No," he said. "Then why'd you go?" "Because somebody was standing under it," Noah said, "and I was the only one looking at the chain." Lily was quiet. "That's not an answer. It's the only one I got bug." "Dad." "You want the real one," Noah said. "The real one's worse. The real one is that I did the math, and the math said I probably wouldn't make it, and I went anyway, and the reason I went anyway is you." Lily turned her head. "Me? You?" Noah said. "Because you were 7, and you watched everything I did, and I couldn't figure out how to be the guy who fixed everything in that building except the one thing that mattered, and then came home and looked at you." He shrugged. "That's it. That's the whole thing. I wasn't brave. I just couldn't figure out how to come home." Lily didn't say anything for about a mile. Then she said, "That's the same thing, Dad." "It really isn't." "It really is," she said. And Noah Bennett, 34 when it happened, 44 with a bad leg, and a brass plate in a lobby, and a woman waiting at home who had once been the loneliest person in America, decided for the first time in his life not to argue with her. Because here's what all of it comes down to, and it's the only thing worth carrying out of that building. A woman who owned everything was invisible. A man who owned nothing was the only one who looked. And the whole world turned on that, not on money, not on power, not on a boardroom or a lawsuit or $11 billion, but on a single, ordinary man in work clothes who walked through the wrong door at the wrong hour and decided when it counted that a human being standing in front of him was worth more than every safe thing he had left. That's not a story about a CEO and a janitor. That's a story about the only 2 people in that building who were still awake. And they found each other because one of them just once refused to look away.